Alrighty then. I think that's all live and all set up. I've got my second camera. Yep, that's all set up as well. Ready to go. Now, I do apologize to everybody. Yes, I have shaved my mustache off. This is in honor of my great aunt's 101st birthday. She's never been a fan of my mustache or any facial hair that I have, so I'm just taking it off for her. But I will be regrowing it, well, soon enough. I think I haven't got anybody jumping into the chat yet. Let's see. Oops. Hey, Carlos. There we go. Just pop this chat out so I can see everybody. There we go. Okay. So today is one of those live streams where I'll actually be, you won't be seeing me very much. Things are good. Where's my hair? It's gone. Who am I and what have I done with AJ? I'm AJ's evil twin, SayJ. Maybe I'm the good twin. Hey, Matt. All right. So I'll switch over to the other camera side here. Hopefully I can do this smoothly. There we go. Yay! It's a me. Now, for those of you who don't know, this surface here is silicone gaming battle mat, and 2 years ago I made these. I ran a Kickstarter for these, and it was successful, but we ran into the problem of COVID-19, which was right when we were shipping stuff out and getting all the fulfillment done. The shipping prices increased by like 300% and pretty much killed any sort of profit that I had from the Kickstarter itself. This time, however, it's been 2 years. We've got nothing but great feedback from everybody, and you're going to see the qualities of this silicone battle mat with your own eyes, because this, as you can see, is a brand new Sharpie pen. And this is you'll see that the Sharpie pen's not normally something that you would use on a wet dry erase type surface, but with this, you can. Oh no, that's not going to work because you can't read anything I'm saying. I'm going to have to flip over the thing. But with this, it basically just licked my thumb, and you can wipe it straight out. So it operates with permanent marker pen, just like a wet dry erase board, which allows you to use basically any sort of pen you want on the surface. It's not, my thumb is not the ideal thing to be wiping it out with, but you get the general idea that it cleans up completely clean. This particular battle mat had the original map surface that I had during the Kickstarter campaign. I left the permanent marker on there for 2 years, and then when I wanted to take this back and clean it, I just cleaned it off yesterday morning, and with a kitchen cloth, a sponge basically, and some water, and it was completely clean. So yeah, it's pretty mind-boggling what you can accomplish with it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've just got to change this thingy here. Don't know if I can. I'll give it a go. I know you can flip it vertically. I don't know if you can flip it horizontally as well. Oh, I don't know. Tricky. Well, that's going to suck if I can't change that. because I was planning on writing some actual words that people could understand. From Kenya. Nice to see you. Well, I don't think I've had anybody tune in from Kenya before. Hey, Debbie. So anyway, yeah, so it has been 2 years since I've run a Kickstarter for the mats, and we're about to start a new one. Oh, you can see I've got marker on there's the permanent marker. It's on my thumb. Haha. So we're going to be running a new Kickstarter very soon. And here's the deal. Anybody who is a previous backer and sends in photos of their mat in action, doesn't have to be a photo of you, but just their battle mat in action, and just a testimonial of what exactly you think of the battle mat that you've been using for the last 2 years, whether it's lived up to its reputation or not. And I am pretty certain that it has. Let me know. And in exchange for that, not only will you get access to the early bird and know exactly, well, I'm going to be telling everybody when the Kickstarter is about to go live, but with your order, if you have a confirmed email address with the order, same order that you've sent in your photo and your little testimonial thingy of the battle mat, you will get not only your minimum order of 1 battle mat, but you'll also get a character sheet and a combat tracker thrown in for free with your order. You won't have to pay for that at all. And that is just a thank you to everybody who backed the previous Kickstarter and sends in their testimonial and a little bit of promo for exactly how good these mats are. Just helping me out with the campaign, essentially, and letting people know that it's no joke. These things are as good as we say they are. So yeah, it's a silicon surface. So one of the cool things about silicon is it's just damn near indestructible. And it resists any hot glue, epoxy resin, all sorts of different crafting glues and PVA, and all the resins that you use for 3D printing and stuff like that will just not attach themselves to this stuff, and you can't burn it and stuff with hot glue and the things. The only thing that it is vulnerable to is super glue. So you don't use super glue on the surface because it can actually bond with the silicone surface. But everything else just basically will peel off completely undamaged. And you can use pretty much any sort of marker pen except for red permanent marker pen. And I mean, yeah, everybody knows that red marker pens are pretty nasty anyway. But yeah, you can use a permanent marker just like a wet dry erase marker, and you can use pens, pencils, inks, all sorts of stuff, paint, you name it. And nothing will permanently mark the surface. And yet, as you can see, if you use a wet dry, like a permanent marker pen, it's touch dry pretty much immediately. So it doesn't smudge and smear like a wet dry eraser would anyway, except when you apply a bit of pressure, it'll just wipe off, and a bit of liquid. As in my case, some spit on my finger. My finger is already smudged with. I really didn't get I should get just like a tissue paper or something like that. But as you can see, you can just wipe it straight off, and it will do that forever. Also, it's heavy and it'll lie flat all the time. So this is about 1 mil thick. The Generation 1 is 1 mil thick. It's got a square grid. 1 inch on one side, and it's got a hex grid, which is not quite 1 inch on the other side. And this first Generation 1 is just available in white, but we're going to be opening it up to a tan parchment colored one, and also a gray sort of stone colored one, as well as this white one. We're not doing the translucent one because it wasn't translucent enough, and we're not going to do the glow in the dark one. We'll probably have that as a stretch goal. Unlockable if people really want the glow in the dark ones, but we just weren't entirely happy with the overall, the glowness was not up to, it wasn't as popular as we thought it would be, and yeah, it was like a gimmick sort of thing. There's not many people they got the glow in the dark one for a gimmicky sort of thing, but day-to-day practical use, it didn't really matter that much, and we thought the highest quality that could possibly do. So the overall general philosophy behind why I'm making these mats in the first place is comes down to the phrase, They don't make them like they used to. Well, that's a horrible thing to live with, a world where we're like, well, they used to make everything great, but these days everything's more cheesy and crappy and throwaway and not as good. Well, what about high technology and advanced compute, materials science and all that sort of stuff? Why can't we make stuff better than we ever used to make? Why can't we make indestructible things and sell them, for a reasonable price? And so that's what I've set out to do. So with this Kickstarter coming up, and we've also learned a lot from our mistakes from the past, and we know a lot more what we're doing now, and exactly how Kickstarter works and the manufacturing and everything. We've changed to another manufacturer who's a lot more easy to deal with. We've also changed the thickness from 1 mil to about 0.6 to 0.75 of a mil, just so it's not as heavy, which opens up a lot more shipping options for us because it brings them down to like under 2 kg. And we've included shipping in the actual price of the Kickstarter, so it's not a separate fee that will be a surprise for everybody at the end of it. And we've set the price point at $42, shipping included, for everyone in the world. So you pay $42 for each sheet, and it will last you a lifetime, and it gets delivered to your door, no extra additional charges. Early birds it'll be either $5 or $10 off that price, like from the get-go. And that'll be available for the first 3 days only. So as soon as I announce the Kickstarter, get in there. It might even be a limited number that I can do for the Kickstarter for the early bird, because we just don't know what the initial interest will be. But I suspect it'll be fairly high. Everybody who's ordered these sheets will probably have a gaming group of 4 or 5 people who would be interested to get them as well, because they really are better than anything else in the world. There's just nothing else quite like them. Oh, 2 markers, yeah. So there you go. That's it. So today we're planning. We're going to be planning some one-shot adventures. And the previous video that I did on the April 1st, the joke was that normally my April 1st videos are very hilarious sort of spoofs and stuff. But this one the joke was that it was actually really useful information presented in like 6 minutes on exactly how to run a one-shot. Unfortunately, my camera is like backwards, so it's going to be very hard to see what I'm talking about. But I'll try and do it in sort of pictorial form. So your one shot is basically divided up into 3 parts, and each one of them is here we go, an hour long. That's my clocks. So in the first hour, it is the intro. Can we do this? No, it's going to be backwards. Does that appear backwards to everybody? I think it does, doesn't it? Oh yeah. Sorry, I've got my microphone set in a weird position, Yeti, because I'm turning to look at the camera while I'm talking to you. So normally I've got the camera set up, the microphone set up so that when I'm looking at the thing that I'm drawing here, my voice is away from the camera. Yeah, it's backwards. Ah, damn it. There's not much I can do about it. Okay. Maybe that was a bad idea. Oh, I'll have to work on that later. So it's basically divided up into 3 parts. The first part is the introduction of your characters and the scene itself. And a lot of people describe a one-shot adventure like a short story. So you want to cover things kind of basically, minimally. Get things across sort of in a punchy way. And it's important, check for a mirror setting. Yeah, I don't know where the mirror setting is. Do we have a... No, it just has... It's just got the option to rotate vertically, flip vertically or not. I'll have to look it up. I guess. Mm. I don't know. The problem with OBS is it's got 1,001 options, and finding them is a matter of consulting a Wikipedia. So it's not exactly user friendly. It's like, oh well, it applies to 1,001 different devices. It's like, yeah, but how about just a Logitech webcam and stuff? The common thing that everybody uses. I'd like some defaults, please. But too much to ask for. Can I write backwards? No, I can't. I briefly considered doing it like a cartoon, but I was like, nah. It's a lot easier to just draw. I had something set up like the other time I did it. Maybe it's just I'll just have to flip my camera around, essentially. You just flip the phone and you're good. Haha. So the first hour of your adventure is introducing the characters. So a lot of people these days, they don't sit down and make up the characters together. They make the characters up separately, and I'm assuming most people are playing online. So you don't have the luxury of sitting down and working out teamwork and stuff like that. And session zeros really kind of, you need to have character building built into your session zero with your character when you think about it. But people don't do that. So it's kind of like, how do you synergize and things like that? You basically do it through chatting before the game starts, through a message board, whether it's Discord or Facebook or whatever chat medium you're using. Everybody decides on like, oh, I think I'll have a cleric. Oh, I'm going to play a fighter, sorcerer, rogue, something. And you don't really need to OBS is hard. I've been using OBS for ages, but like set up a new camera, it's rusty as hell. So in the first hour or so of your one shot, your players are basically sitting down and getting used to each other and their player characters, and this is their moment where they to their backstory and all that sort of stuff, because everybody's convinced that they have to have a 10-page backstory these days. And this is the bit where they interact and the characters get to know each other and stuff. And also it's a really good like hour or so or an hour or so where you're getting used to each other's company when you're sitting around the table. So the DM is taking a back seat really from describing things in great detail. And I think it's a good idea to sort of rely on a lot of tropes and cliches and just get the players used to. It's basically the players' time. And when they are interacting with the game world, it is to find out what the quest is. So you want it to have either, if you're not entirely sure that the players are used to the idea of interacting with non-player characters in a non-aggressive way, the best way to do it is to give them a passive quest object, like it's a notice board, or they've heard about this, or the characters are in the region for a specific purpose. They all know each other and they're banded together for a certain thing. And I'm not just talking about Dungeons and Dragons here. I'm talking about all sorts of role-playing games. So you could have in mind there are a bunch of superheroes, and they've all got secret identities, and they're meeting together for the first time because they're trying out for a super agency. So the adventure is actually trying out as, they're demonstrating their superpowers on some set sort of tasks, like you have to round up this particular criminal. The first person who brings in this criminal gets priority to, joining the super team and stuff. And the super speedster may be all like super confident, thinking, haha, I can do it faster than anybody else. But there's some sort of complication or something involving the villains that the DM hasn't revealed yet. It could be a Call of Cthulhu game where you're establishing your characters and what their credentials are and where they come from, how they know what the situation is and how they've met and stuff. So it's a lot of just basically your character's backstory becomes the current story. So it's the gelling and bringing together of the characters in a place, in a time, establishing that their purpose for being there, See, back in the old days, you didn't have to tell the players or give the players any sort of lead into the adventure at all. They would just be there and they'd find out that there's a dungeon nearby, and it's all like, okay, let's go to the dungeon, or it's okay, we've got a quest, let's do the quest. The idea of like having to motivate the characters or give them a reason for being on their adventure in the first place didn't even occur to anybody. That's a modern thing, and it's kind of a conceited, stupid thing that players do these days. Yes, it's stupid. It's like you're there sitting at a table with a made-up character to go on an adventure. I don't have to give you a reason why you're going on an adventure. That's what you built your character for. So it's like, well, if my character's not motivated to be there, then make up a new character that is. You antisocial dick. Yeah, it's like, yeah, the hair is gone, yes. Mm-hmm. And so tabletop miniatures are cool, and an actual old school tabletop play is also cool. I've been making terrain and stuff like that because that's a lot of my focus. Yeah, flip horizontal option is not there on the camera. It was so annoying. Yeah, if I just basically I'll just flip my camera around next time. But it's literally blue tacked to my wall right now. I just like, I'll set up before I start, and I just didn't set it up properly. Not enough testing. It's a live stream. What do you want? I'm no expert. Your home group often discusses the next campaign before session 0 to see what everyone is open to doing. Yeah, that's the way I do it too. Basically, I'm talking about no stash and no filter. Yeah, basically, I'm talking about pickup groups. So this is applicable to people that you've never met before, essentially. So if you put out like a message on Roll20, hey, I'm going to be running this game, and then a bunch of people show up and you've never played with them before, session 0 is kind of like, it doesn't really work because your gaming session is your session 0. So a one shot is really your introduction to a potential campaign. So you run a one-shot game with the idea that it could extend, if the group really gels well together, it may extend into a further games, and it quite often does, in my experience. But it's also a good excuse if you have people there who are not gelling to say, oh, okay, well, it was a one-shot, we had fun, see you later, guys. And then you can secretly message the people that you had fun with and say, hey, would you like to play another one-shot? And then bring in some other people until you've got the right gel of different ingredients to make a really good gaming group, and then you can extend it into a campaign. So a one shot is a session 0 of a campaign, you could say. Yeah, if you showed up at a table, you were ready to do any adventure the game master presented. Players today are weird. Yeah, I can understand that. I've done it myself with player characters that were made like we're playing in a superheroes game, Heroes Unlimited by Palladium Books, and I made up a domestic service robot that was not really optimized for combat or anything like that. He was designed to be a problem-solving domestic robot that I thought, okay, what would be realistic things that a domestic robot would have? He'd had a flame-retardant flamethrower built into his arm, for if there was a fire at the home. So you could possibly use that to disable or disorientate a foe, and get away from them. But unfortunately, the Dungeon Master didn't really get what I was going for. It put me into a heavy combat situation right from the beginning, and very laboriously tortured and killed my character to death over the course of about half an hour or so, which left me with a very bad taste in my mouth in regards to his attitude towards what I was trying to do. But I didn't really explain what I was trying to do well enough, or he just wasn't into it. Had another instance where we were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I was making a ninja character, and the DM was very reluctant to have any ninjas in the game. And in the first bit of the game, he said, okay, you need to go and get some equipment. I'm just like, go into town and buy my equipment. He's like, yeah, we're going to roleplay you getting your equipment. So I go to the local inn or whatever and say, hi, I'd like to buy some ninja equipment. And he goes, ninja, and stabs me in the neck and my character dies. So the half hour or so I spent making this character up, and this character sheet was completely wasted because he got stabbed in the neck and died for revealing himself as a ninja, because basically I was set up by the DM because he was an asshole. So DMs can be nasty too. They sometimes don't get the idea, or they just haven't express themselves like, I'm not interested in that player character. I'm not interested in somebody with a 10-page backstory for a first level character. We're starting at level 3, but the idea is that you're all from this village as like your apprentices who know each other. You're not your whole village was killed by orc raiders and stuff, and you have no attachment to anybody who trained you or anything like that. It's like, well, great. How's your character supposed to progress in training to level 3 or 4 if everybody that they trained with previously were killed and they have no attachment to any guild or anything like that in the game story? I know that players do that these days because they're not entirely sure what their place is going to be in the game world, but the idea behind making a backstory for your character is you do that in cahoots with the other players and the game setting that the person running the game has set up. So you don't make a character backstory in a vacuum. That's like, I'm going to bring my idea of the story to the table. I'm going to DM this bit of the game. And it's like, no. You don't dictate what the game world is going to be. You cooperate and you build it cohesively together. That's what role-playing is all about. If you don't have that in mind, it's basically like you're making a character that's saying, well, why do I have to be here? It's like, well, my character's got this backstory and you have to cater to that. It's like, yeah, that's fine for an experienced dungeon master, but you don't know how experienced they are or how confident they are in what they're doing. So, maybe it's a good idea to just sort of wait and make up your blank sort of character archetype and then work out the nitty-gritty details of their backstory when you're sitting at the table with everybody else. It only takes like 5 or 10 minutes to do that, and it works a lot better because you can establish who knows each other, that sort of stuff. And that first hour of the one shot is really where you can do that. You can discuss, where's your character from? Is he from the nearby region of Glentree? I don't know. What's Glentree? Glentree is a place that specializes in trading in furs and silks. So your character's got like lush sort of ermine cloak and really well-made leather armor. Give them a +1 on their leather armor. Oh, sweet. Okay, cool. It's like masterwork. Yeah, cool. I'll take that advantage. They wouldn't have that if they hadn't sort of bought into the backstory that the dungeon master is giving them. So how do your players know each other? Well, I think we trained in the same Ludos or whatever it is, as fighters, because we're both fighters. I'm a Eldritch Wizard fighter and he's a champion fighter. And but when earlier on in our careers in level 1, because we're level 3 characters, we trained at the same place under the same master, so we know each other. It's like, oh, well, your synergies in combat give you an advantage whenever you're standing next to each other. And, if you assist him, you give an extra +1 on his attack. Wow. Yeah, okay, we'll take that. Work with your dungeon master, Yeah, next time you see a ninja stab them in the neck. Yeah, well, there's always ninjas somewhere. Quest for cheese. Yeah, the backstory of the characters was the first few levels of play. Exactly. Yeah, backstory is a good session 0 material. Yeah, so the next thing that I introduce in that first hour or so of the session, so this is what I call the intro hour of your one shot, is the NPCs that they interact with. One of the things that I do quite commonly is I'll put like a fortune teller or seer or a crystal ball merchant or a tea leaf reader or a shaman or a psychic or something like that they meet, or there's some precursor warning sign that they can pick up on. If they interact with that person, it's a weird sort of cool thing. They may be able to pick up extra healing potions or something if it's part of the rule set on the campaign. If you know that they're getting into, and that the healing potions and stuff are really, they're like a resource that they can use in the second or the third part of the adventure, but they're really part of the third part, the boss monster. So you want to trick them into using them a little earlier than they should, or you give them a hint or a clue. Like the way that fortune telling and stuff works in the game is it's not describing exactly what's going to happen later on, because you can't do that because you don't know what's going to happen later on. Players are completely unpredictable. What you do is you give them flags, warning signs, portents. So when the red sunset shows up in the game, they know that they should expect danger from above. It's like, what is that exactly? It could be a attacking monster. It could be falling rocks. It could be something we don't know. It could be an authority figure that harasses them. So when the red sunset shows up, they're ready for something from above getting them. And they get that advantage of awareness of something that you've got planned in a general sense coming up in the adventure. They'll know that if they see a chasm or something like that, go to the side, go to the left-hand side and look for the clue there. So it could be a track or something like that, and the trigger is on the left-hand side. And so it seems like you knew exactly what was going to happen coming up, and you're just giving them this amazing advantage. If they just interact with the NPCs, they'll get this cool lead-in to help them later on in their game. And it's that simple. It's just a simple little thing. Go to the left. It's from above. It's a red marmoset crawls across the thing, and you'll know that somebody's going to get poisoned, and that's the antidote, and it's like, that's a clear advantage that we got just from interacting with an NPC. And that's how you theme every NPC at the start. They are all resources or potential threats. So that's the investigative part. So you're investigating the characters' backstories, their reason for being there, how they gel together as a collective player group, and also they're setting up resources and stuff that they can use information-wise later on in the game. So it's important for them to relax and interact with the world, the game setting, because this is where they're imagining everything and situating themselves in an imaginary environment. So you're depicting it verbally through your different senses, and if they have trouble imagining things like theater of the mind, through some sort of a virtual tabletop or props or something like that, or even just the way you're describing things. So you may be putting on a voice and hunching and making like gestures of the character because they can't imagine what an ogre or something looks like without some sort of visual clue. A lot of people have aphasia. They don't have the ability to imagine things that are just described to them. They need some sort of a visual clue. So it's important to cover all the different bases, to give them all the different ways that you can describe things, and to take your time to do that. And a good hour or so at the start of the adventure. I know it seems like a long time, but it passes by really quickly. Now, on to the next phase of the adventure, and that is travel, your first encounter, your first sort of experience of combat and skill use. You may have got some skill use in the first part of the adventure, but you should not be getting into combat or something like that right from the get-go. And look out for players who want to start a fight with any NPC that comes along. They're usually fairly immature, or they're just not team players, or they're on some sort of a spectrum. And just sort of extricate yourself from that by just saying, well, you beat them, or no, they run away, or well, you get arrested by some town guards and that character's out of the adventure from now on. They're like, what? Yeah, it's like, yeah, you got arrested and now you're in jail. Everybody else carries on. Here's a backup character for you. Did you have a backup character? Well, you probably should have if you're going to do that. Then the second part of the adventure is either rescuing that person from the jail, or you now traveling to the objective, or you're traveling to the next person who has information about the objective, or wherever you're going, it's now the next scene of the adventure, the one shot. So you've gone from the establishing place, it could be a tavern, could be the town square, could be a runaway train, could be a shipwreck, could be a gladiatorial arena, could be whatever, a spaceport. And now you're going to the second scene. So it's inside your spaceship, it's on the beach, it's traveling through the jungle, it's going on the wagon train that you're protecting as town guards or as caravan guards. It's going through the wilderness and finding the entrance to the lost mine of Fandelva. It's whatever. Along the way, you're now experiencing hardship, difficulties, puzzles, things that delay you, things that try to take away your resources. And these are all stuff that is going to be vitally important in the third part of the adventure, where you're facing a real lethal challenge. And it's also introducing the idea of the environment itself is interactive. So it's outside of combat or in combat, there's things that your character can do in the environment. So they may be good at detecting hidden things. They may be very good at negotiating with woodland spirits and creatures. They may be really good at casting spells which divine the right direction, or speed up travel, or avoid detection from passing patrols of monsters. If they do get into combat with something, it's going to be some sort of a minion creature which has a very low chance of killing them and ending their adventure straight away. And this is the important thing: never put anything in there which is going to block them completely from getting to the third part of the adventure, because it's self-defeating. So it may delay them, it may cost them resources, it may cost them time, it may give the boss monster at the end of it an advantage if they sort of fail to get there in time, or they may miss out on some objective bonus from getting there in time, or getting the resource without any sort of problems. You should be rewarding clever interaction with NPCs. Any sort of effort that they put into gathering information in the first scene of the first hour of the adventure is now where that really pays off here. And any further investigation or further clever gameplay that they make, or playing into their character's strengths and things, should absolutely be rewarded in this. And anybody who interacts with the environment or tries to figure out some sort of advantage, this is where you let them know that, by the way, in the third part of this adventure, the clue to unlocking the traps is the color yellow, or it'll be a specific type of religion or some sort of carving or something like that you discover here, or it's a particular type of pirate band or the way they operate that you're going to learn specific things about if you just investigate and role play and interact with the DM and the environment of the adventure. So this is where you introduce your characters to utility, non-combat skills, investigation, their characters' abilities and strengths, the stuff that, their character background that they've established, or the relationship that they've established in the first part of the adventure really starts to gel, and they get used to the idea of their character are adventuring and using skills and stuff like that. And in combat is just an introduction to how they use combat and work together as a team. So it's not about defeating the foe, it's about learning how their characters work so that they can get a better, more complete and full experience of combat in the third part of the adventure. And the third part of the adventure is the boss fight. This is where they are in the dungeon and they're at the scene, and everything's gelled together. They're in an interactive environment, the traps and stuff are there. If they've done your job right, then now the traps are now less a hindrance and they're working for them. So they can actually use the environment against the boss monster. They may have an NPC that they've befriended who was originally going to betray them, but they've investigated and interact with that minion of the boss who's now working for them, and they've got extra information. The dragon's got a weak back leg. He can't breathe fire in this area here because the air is toxic, and if he inhales, it'll set off his asthma or something. You don't know. But it could be a million and one different things. The star drive can be used to bypass the ship's shields to get into the capital ship and rescue the person that we're going for. It could be a particular weakness of a super being. Superman's vulnerable to kryptonite, and we've got a vault next door to the bank that is being heisted that's got some kryptonite in there. We just have to open the door, and he'll be weakened for the entire fight. That sort of thing. And so now everybody's skilled up. They know how to interact with the environment. They know what your expectations are as a dungeon master. They know what their expectations are as a player. They've got certain abilities and stuff that they really like. They've got certain character traits that they've established. They're all pretty comfortable working together. And now the fight is a big cohesive romp, and everybody's fully immersed, and the consequences of failure are lethal. So if your failure is on the dice and things like that, and you fail to do any of the planning and prep and stuff like that, there's a good chance that your character is going to die, because it's a one-shot. We're not expecting to have a campaign here. All of the characters are pretty much possibly expendable in a one-shot game. And that's the fun part of it too. It's like, yeah, there's real risk here. You may get killed. Ninjas prefer groin shots. It's like coffee for them. Really excited for those 3 Kickstarters. I just backed one to try one shots. So what? Hey, Overboard. I'm actually really excited for these 3 Kickstarters I just backed to try as one shots to see if my players like them. Broken Weave Cubicle. Oh, Cubicle 7. Yep. Fate Forge Encyclopedia 2 and Scott Taylor Reverse Dungeon. Oh, cool. So it's like a terrain thing, a resource, and Cubicle 7's Broken Weave. Is that like a world setting? I like Cubicle 7 stuff. I'm looking forward to, I think it's Black Star Realm or something like that. I've got so many Kickstarters on their way. Yeah, the Dragon Smoke has made the sun red. There you go. You're too distracted by clean-shaven AJ. This is weird. Like they changed something in the Matrix. Yeah, I know. It's weird for me too. I mean, have sympathy for me. It's like I've shaved both my eyebrows off. That's what it feels like, ladies. Where if a guy has shaved his moustache off after a long period of time, I literally feel like I'm naked in the face. Gesh spells are underused. Gesh is how you actually pronounce that properly. A lot of people say Gesh. Quest. They should just call it Quest. The Quest spell. I really hate the spelling of that word. That spell. The spelling of that spell. Great ideas here. If your backstories appear no benefits at all, then they're totally useless. Yeah, especially for new players. I'm from the mountains, but when it's time for mountaineering, there's a -2. Yeah, exactly. So backstories, big extensive backstories, are a good indicator that somebody has not had a lot of practical time at the table. It's over planning your campaign world is a really good indication that you haven't dungeon mastered a lot. Dungeon mastering is a lot of compromise and being ready to accessorize and change things on the fly. It's like, oh, I've got one hair tie and I've got 50 different hairstyles I can make from this one miracle hair tie. It's like, yeah, that's a skill that you pick up as a dungeon master. The answer is not more hair ties. It's how you use the hair tie. So keep it simple. Keep it ready to adapt, and you will have a much more fun time at the table. Believe me, trust me. Words of wisdom. AJ, question. Oh, hang on. Real drama comes from taking away free choice done with guest spells. It can be great stories. Sometimes, Samiyeti, certainly. Like, everybody starting with amnesia and stuff is a real dumb way to start a game. Yeah. In my home, people get disinformation about directions as a joke. It's not funny because it's super easy to get lost on the other side of a river or island bridges. It's a maze. Yeah, I strongly disagree with using mazes in adventures, because when you're actually trying to describe a maze in the actual adventure, it's just a real pain in the ass, because it's nothing but a block from going forward in the story. It's like, what's the point of a maze other than to stop people progressing forward? It's stupid. I don't even like mazes in real life. Better have something entertaining in there, because walking around a corridor in a cornfield is boring. Unless you're with somebody who you like to be lost somewhere with, I suppose. And hopefully they like being lost there with you too. Don't ever go to a maze on a first date. AJ, question. What is the highest character level you'd suggest for this formula of one-shot? Any, really. As long as everybody's used to it. Like, if you're starting off with a level 20 character on a one-shot, you're in for a world of pain when it comes to, like, starting combat. How on earth are you supposed to know all of the different ways that your characters work together with a level 20 character? That's just insane. You would need 5 hours just to investigate how they work together synergistically in combat. Combat is going to take 3 hours. So the entire one shot is just going to be one fight. And this is realistic. You've really got 3 scenes, maybe 2, a couple of scenes in the second hour here. But by the time you get to the third hour, you should really be in the sort of end scene of the game. So many people cram way too much stuff into a one-shot. It's just impractical. You're not going to get it all done. So you need to understand that there is practical time limits on stuff that can be done. One of the things that skill use and over investigation and things like that costs you in the game is time. So when somebody is like, I want to investigate this, I want to investigate that, I want to roll this skill, I want to roll that skill, it's just like, how about you roll the skill when I tell you to roll the skill? Otherwise, just describe what your character's doing, and if I think that it impacts their progress going forward or it may cost them a resource, that's when I get you to roll the dice. I, as the dungeon master, ask you to roll the dice. You don't tell me that you're going to roll some dice to do the thing. You're not the dungeon master. I am. You don't have agency about the reality of the world. I do. So if you want to roll the dice, go for it. I'm just going to ignore what you're telling me unless I'm asking you to roll the dice. Otherwise, we'll just do it narratively. It's so much faster and easier that way. And that's what dungeon masters are for. Particularly if you're playing Numenera, they will say, okay, now you roll some dice. We are in combat. You roll some dice. I just describe what happens. That's what I love about the Cypher system. You roll skill checks and stuff in Heroes Unlimited if you unnecessarily, and boy, you're in for a world of pain, because the Heroes Unlimited skill system is not conducive to a good time. This guy does a great AJ impression. What is the highest character level I would suggest? No higher than level 5, I would say, for a one-shot. Really, it can be fun to play around with things, but you're going to have to give yourself, the higher the level, the more amount of time for familiarization with the character sheet you're going to have to give them, because it's an impossible task unless they're very experienced players and have played high level games before and are familiar with that particular character build. It's going to be almost impossible for them to understand what's going on. Is this a live chat or a video premiere? What do you think it is? Games by Mark Wolf. Hello from your friendly neighborhood sorcerer. Subtle clues can be used. He used his genius to get AI to do these live streams for him. Yeah, I am an AI. I seem very realistic, but in actual fact, I am cake. Jumped in late, missed the discussion setup. I thought I was watching a video for a moment. There you go. PvE is the best part of the game. The trip to whoever the boss is can weaken the players for that fight, making it a challenge. Yeah, player versus environment. Yeah, avoid player versus player interactions like the plague in one shot. You just don't have time for that shit. In a campaign, sure, maybe, but not in a one shot. Just say, hey, step outside. Fourth wall it for a second. So step outside and say, hey, don't do that. Nobody wants that. That's a bad idea. That's what my character would do. Well, yeah, that's a bad character build for this type of adventure, and you should know better. Now you know better. See you next time. Disconnected. Look, it's a dragon made of kryptonite. It might be funny, AJ, if AJ could somehow appear as the Invisible Man. Oh, yeah. Any tips on building dread and tension effectively, like in an alien type scenario where the players are being stalked but unaware of them? Did you hear that? Hang on a second. Everything's getting dark outside all of a sudden. Wow. It's like a rumbling in the ground. Is anybody feeling a bit tense? Have I given you less information about the environment than you would prefer? Are you hyper-focused on what I'm doing right now? Ah! Yeah, that's how you build tension. Just start removing information that they need. Give them too much information with no explanation of what's going on. That's how you build tension. Next question. Antimatter dragon. Summer kryptonite dragon. Honest One Shots is watching hilarious red shirt and One Shots is watching hilarious red shirt antics. Yeah, one of the famous adventures that I had one time was I ran 2 different groups through the same adventure scenario, and I just basically recorded everything, because I've got a very good memory, recorded everything that the first adventuring group did in that adventure. And then as the second adventuring group went through after them, it was the same scenario. Everything was exactly the same, except the NPCs that were proceeding and in the environment with them were the other adventuring group as NPCs. And the antics that they got up to were completely crazy from the perspective of the people who were now interacting. So like, what are those NPCs doing? It doesn't make any sense. Why did you just throw a grenade into an empty room? What? So player characters are crazy. They make the best NPCs. So run the adventure twice with two different groups and see what happens. That's a great way to do things. It's hilarious. In Canada, it's called the geese spell. I like it. I had a good maze in the VTT, but no way I'm doing that in Theatre of the Mind. Yeah. I find VTTs are not very immersive. To be honest, I watched the Dungeons and Dragons premiere thing, and the virtual tabletop. It looked like an absolute nightmare. They weren't even looking at each other. Like, the guy's doing the whole thing, oh, I'm blah, 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 voice acting, and nobody was even looking at the person. They were all looking at their screen. It's like, that's funny. What's going on with the next widget? It was horrible. That was like, you may as not, why were they even in the same room together? It's not role-playing. That's a LAN party. I'm not going to play that. That's terrible. I can see why they're trying to do that, for money, obviously, but no, that's not role-playing. That's just a video game. Like, I've always been slightly annoyed with video games calling themselves a role-playing game. It's like, no, role-playing games allow you to do anything. This doesn't. Like, what if I just decided to walk off from that adventure and go to another town? I didn't like that place. What if I got into a fight with a magistrate and had to leave, or something like that? That sort of thing. Like I say, it's good for a one-shot maybe, but it's not good for a campaign where you have freedom of choice to go anywhere and do anything. And the amount of prep that the Dungeon Master has to do for those VTTs is enormous. Enormous amounts of prep. You have to literally construct everything. So of course you're going to buy the module, the pre-made adventure. That's what they're really trying to do. Yeah, but I'm not going to talk about that. We all know what the story is. 3 to 5, level 3 to level 5 is best for one shot. Much higher than that is too many fiddly bits. Yeah, and I don't agree with the level 0 thing. That's okay for an adventure for a really simple rule system, or where the characters are bought into the idea that your characters are expendable. And I do suggest that you have backup non-player characters who are perfectly workable as player characters. So you actually give them a character sheet and everything like that. You hold it in reserve as the Dungeon Master. They're just NPCs who are there to hold the horses or carry boxes of treasure, or their town guard, their guards that are with you on the caravan, or their staff or something with the adventuring troop, or their rangers or farmsteaders that you've met along the way, or they're a captive in the dungeon that you're investigating that you've rescued. They may even be a monster that's particularly friendly, And then if a player character dies in section 2 of the adventure, or right at the start of the fight with the boss monster, that's going to last for another hour of the adventure, the player doesn't have to stand around twiddling their thumbs, and they don't have to go and make a whole new player character. You've already got one ready to go. It's not quite as powerful or cool as their player character was, but at least they're still in the game and interacting. They're just in the body of the new character that you've pre-made for them. So it's a good idea to make them slightly quirky, give them something cool, give them one sort of one thing they're particularly good, like sneaking is really good, like being hard to detect but being fairly feeble. They may choose to go charging into the adventure and get that character killed too, or they may be a little bit more cautious and realize, oh, you can actually die in this. Time capsule simulation of myself. Yeah, that's a perfect example, Sanchgate. The Palladium RPG skill system. I'd like to roll my bonsai skill. What's your bonsai skill? 18%. Come on. Yeah, there's so many unnecessary skills in RPGs. Honestly, you only need about 10. In practicality, you only need about 10 skills in an RPG. Can I roll a D12 and D8 instead of a D20? Get out of my table. Level 2 D&D is good for newbies on one-shots. No subclasses, but more hit points. Yeah, that's a good option. Yeah, I mean, they've all... 5th edition is really designed around either playing a first level, a third level, or a 5th level character. Really. And it's not really designed past level 10 because that's what surveys told them. You know, they're just working on an algorithm. They haven't really sat down and play tested the game. They didn't. And they don't. When they introduce a new source book, they haven't play tested that stuff. Hell no. It's obvious they haven't. When players want to fight each other in my games, don't even have them roll. Takes too much time and most games aren't made for it. So just ask the players what happened. Yeah, exactly. Meanie. Yeah, I can be mean. If you handed me a 15th level ranger and said, here you go, this is where we're at, I'd be fine with it. But if said cleric, I'd be like, give me an hour or so to research my spells and abilities. Yeah, exactly, Avron. The Cubicle 7 Broken Weave is a crazy world setting. They, wink wink, developed a unique version of 5e called something else, like C7D20. Looks creepy twisted world. I'm sending Fred a copy. Oh, cool. Like Starship Troopers, just as Earth gets bombed starting the war, sky goes dark. Would you like to know more? Yeah, exactly. You look thinner in the face somehow, yeah. Wizard of the Coast doesn't know how to design a game. Well, the executives certainly don't. They know how to, like, that. They're designing, they've got a bunch of people who design video games. Chris Gow is very famous for saying, oh, all gamers are essentially the same. He's never played a role-playing game. He's never rolled dice. And he's in charge of 5th edition's development. Come on, people. That's the whole point, though. They can be in separate rooms or countries. Yeah, but the majority of people who play Dungeons & Dragons play in local groups together, themselves, in person. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of a social game where you sit down. It's like that's why it's a tabletop role-playing game, not a laptop role-playing game, not a desktop computer top role-playing game. It's a tabletop role-playing game. Do I need to explain this further? Oh, that's right. You're not blue overboard. Yeah, I'm perfectly okay. Like with COVID-19 and everything, we've got a whole bunch of people who have never made a character sheet without a character builder. They've never played a game other than 5th edition. And they think that's normal. It's not normal, kids. It's not normal. Everybody who's been playing role-playing games this entire time have been playing multiple game systems this entire time. And the idea of just playing one game system is horrific. It's like, oh, you poor thing. Here, let me help you into your chair. Let me introduce you to a new role-playing system. Ah! Is it like 5th edition? No, it's much better. Used to listen to AJ's lore videos to fall asleep years ago. Thought maybe some of the information might stick like a glue stick. Or you could just not make killing a PC to be the end of that PC. That's bad GMing. No, it's not. It's not. Because the consequences of actions. That's the thing. Otherwise, what are dice rolls for? What's combat for? If there's no threat there. It's like, oh, well, how does my, I rolled really badly and I got into combat and now my character has no hit points. What happens? Your character's dead. Oh, but don't I get to roll saving throws and stuff? Yeah, you failed. Your character's dead. Oh, well, what happens now? You can use this character sheet. Yeah, consequences of actions are kind of important because they're going to remember that game in 20 years. If you just hand them everything and they have no consequences for their actions, then they don't remember the game in 20 years' time, and they don't have a cool anecdote with their friends, because that's how brain meat works, you monkey. Role-playing games are designed to key into biological aspects of the way the mind functions, and memories are formed around threats to your survival. And you use role-playing games to do that safely by proxy without killing a person or putting them in actual real danger. Putting them in mental danger in their subconscious has the same sort of effect. They will remember whatever happened in their game. You're training them, whoever is playing the game, to think about consequences and actions and investigate different ways of thinking about stuff. You know, the objective of the game is to put yourself in hazardous or imagination rich environments where you can take a different perspective. So you're not role-playing yourself as a hero, you're role-playing a different person. That's the reason why we had alignments and different races and things like that in the game. So basically homogenizing everything and making it safe is not the objective of role-playing games. It takes away the cool thing that role-playing games are, that's not video games. That's not a group collective kumbaya storytelling project. If you want to do like theater, if you want to do that sort of thing, then go to a theater sports and do improv. You know, that's not what role-playing games are. So I disagree with that. It's not bad DMing to kill a player character. And people who invest too much of themselves, or, you know, they put all sorts of weird emotional emphasis on player characters, they shouldn't be playing one-shots where you know, that sort of thing. It's just crazy. Oh, no problem, Shakescan. Shakescan, you get a pass. Hired NPCs are great story fuel. It can be anything. They can steal the loot, try to kill the players, all kind of stuff. Yeah, my favorite is the helpful kobold who was like, I'll lead you through the swamp. So you meet the kobold in the intro to the adventure, or just at the start of the second hour of the adventure. And they sort of pop out of the woodwork, out of the forest or whatever, where you rescue them, or maybe they're part of a group that, you know, is a potential threat, but they surrender. And now they're working for you, and they'll help lead you through the dangerous fire swamp, you know, to get to the thing. But if the characters had avoided that or like questioned that monstrous race's motives for helping them, they might realize, oh, the kobold's actually working for the dragon at the end of the adventure. And the kobold has secretly been stealing their supplies or peeing in their healing potions or something kind of critical to their success later on. And they really should have paid more attention. Also, by helping them through the hazardous part of, or the more puzzling part of the second part of the adventure, there's a critical and environmental challenge in the last part of the adventure that they're not going to have the skill to overcome or turn to their advantage. So that further hampers them. The kobold wasn't actually helping them. He was setting them up the entire time. So it's like, aha! Yeah, they'll learn. The players will learn a valuable lesson there. Yeah, Meat Grinders made this hobby, folks. It's true. It's true. Look, go back and play first edition Dungeons & Dragons. It's an entirely different kettle of fish than what you think it is. Go and play, you know, Dungeon Crawl Classics or Osric or something like that, and or you know, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, and you'll understand what role-playing games are really all about. 5th edition gives you an entirely different, like, story-based, my character's a special snowflake sort of thing. The Matt Mercer effect is very real, folks. VGT is a video game by definition, yeah. Yeah, you've tried to get your friends into other games, but they're scared. Yeah, what the fuck? Why would you be scared of other role-playing systems? Because you've been wrapped up in cotton wool by Wizards of the Coast, because they're designing the game for tantrum-prone 9-year-olds who have no emotional development because they've been raised on the internet as fake outrage clout clones. Let's face it. There's a severe problem with reality with these kids. And let's face it, the authority figures are entirely to blame when they can get away with outright lying in politics and stuff like that with no consequences. What example does that give to kids these days? Lock them up. You know, answer for your lies. Maybe it's unpopular to say that these days. But I think there should be consequences for actions. I'm going to disagree. My players and those I play alongside remember the cool things they get to do and the death of the NPCs they cared about more than the death of their own PCs, always. Good for you. But I think that's just the differences on tables, yeah. And the thing is, Sven, I respect that, but you must understand that there is different points of view, and what I'm talking about is a biological fact. Like, it hardwires your memory to remember things that are a threat to survival, and your subconscious doesn't differentiate between make-believe and real. That's why we read stories where the threat to the hero is, you know, we want to believe that the hero is in actual danger, even though we've got 50 pages left of the book. Like, why would you read that unless there's that possibility of death, you know? We want to see the hero of our story get into hardship, you know, and have challenges and strive and overcome those sort of things, because it's training ourselves. We want to think, like, if I was in that situation, what would I do? And you like to think, yeah, I'd rise to that challenge. You know, but if we never put ourselves in those challenging situations mentally, how are we ever going to handle them in real life? Role-playing games are really good for training you for real-life situations. And that's the thing, that there's nothing, like, I'm of the opinion, I'll play any role-playing setting. I'll play any sort of imaginary role-playing setting, because I can just step away from the table if I don't like it. But I'm never going to reject something outright. It's like, oh, you're playing investigators of a serial killer, and one of the people at the table is playing the serial killer. I'm like, ooh, whew, that's pretty hardcore. But yeah, I'll do it. You know, I'll get into it, because what's the danger there to me physically? Nothing. Mentally, it may be slightly traumatic, but I'll get over it, and it'll certainly harden me up to, you know, the real. If I ever get into a grim and horrible situation where I'm dealing with somebody who's got, you know, severe mental problems and stuff, if I played a role-playing game that's prepared me for that situation beforehand, that's invaluable. But to reject it outright because it may be possibly offensive doesn't help anybody. So yeah, I'm very much of the opinion that people should be free to play whatever the fuck they like when it's a game of imagination. And anybody who's threatened by imagination, what you're really threatening is their ideological control over everybody else. That's why religions were so against role-playing games. Hello, people. It was crossing into controlling people through their imagination. I said it. I'll say it out loud. The DM as a bad player is very likely a really bad DM. A DM that is a bad player is very likely a really bad DM. Oh, yeah. A bad player makes for a bad DM. Yeah, you're probably right there. And don't forget, like, I often use this as like a metaphor, but don't do this in real life. If you have somebody who's like really, really like an arsehole about the rules and everything about the game, like, whenever they arrive, they're always like, oh, everything's fine. And then they send you a 10-point bulletin email about everything that was wrong with the situation after the game, for instance. Next time they show up to the game session, and this is just a theoretical what if, you bring out a board game like Settlers of Catan, and everybody opens up Settlers of Catan and they all get ready, and they're like, they've got the character sheet and they're like, wait a minute, I thought we were playing a role-playing game. It's like, no, we're here together and played a game together as friends. What are you here for? Do you know, that's the whole point of playing a role-playing game. We're gathered together here as friends to play a game. If you've lost sight of that fact, if your total focus is on how you can be an arsehole in the context of a role-playing game, then maybe you should get the fuck out. That's probably the reason why most people should get kicked out of role-playing games. Not because they're problem players, it's because they're problematic people. They're just not being friends. They're not being friendly. That's the whole point of role-playing games. Honey Heist is amazing. Played Honey Heist one night and had a blast. That sounds cool. I'm not saying that every single game should be like death, stuff like that. I'm talking about games where there's lethal combat and stuff like that involved. It's lethal combat. You've got swords and stuff. Like, for instance, the idea that nobody ever loses their head or an arm in sword fights in Dungeons and Dragons is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Of course you're going to lose an arm or a leg. It should be relatively easy to paste an arm or a leg back together on somebody in a role-playing game, but it ain't. It's like, if you get decapitated, so that's why critical hits and things like that are very, very cartoony in Dungeons and Dragons. It's not very realistic at all. So arguing, whether like muskets and stuff should be allowed in a fantasy game with magic and stuff, it's like, well, maybe people should lose limbs and stuff if they're having a sword fight. Maybe. It's like, hi, my name's Jack. I'm third level and I have no leg. Yeah. Didn't you just get it healed? No, I've got no gold. Why? Why have you got no gold? Because I had to pay somebody to rescue me when I was bleeding to death. Yeah, Vorpal swords are problematic. I had Ian, my friend Ian will remember this very, very well. We had a boss fight where we were fighting against a giant and my character had a Vorpal sword, and in the first round of combat he rolled a natural 20 and chopped the guy's head off. End of combat. It was like, that was supposed to last for the next hour of gameplay, AJ. I'm like, well, sorry, you gave me a Vorpal sword. And then what happened? The boss monster got rezzed somehow, and I was like, well, why did I have the Vorpal sword in the first place? That sucked. It's like, you should have given me the win, man. You should have had something else planned, but he didn't. If you're going to have Vorpal swords, have another monster planned, ready to go. Don't just res the monster and say, he could somehow heal from being decapitated. Come on. Yeah, rules lawyers need to be catapulted. They can be very useful, though. But it's not about rules lawyering. It's about what they're actually doing at the table to their friends. That's the point. It's not how they're playing the game. It's how they're interacting with other people. The other thing is, like, one of my personal peeves is somebody who makes a player character a certain build, and then, like, this is like the person who shows up at the adventure says, well, I don't have any reason to go to this dungeon, Why would my rogue character want to do that? It's like, how do I know you people? It's like, come on, man. We're trying to play a role-playing game here. Like somebody who makes a particular character with the intention of role-playing them a certain way, and then when they get to the table, they role-play them a completely different way. That is really, really antisocial behavior. Or one particular player who who wasn't happy with their character. So I said, oh, okay, just roll up a new character. No, I want to end my character in the game. So she tried to suicide her character in the actual game. And that caused everybody who was role-playing their characters correctly to try and save her character, who kept walking into lethal situations and stirring up a situation that would get her character killed. That is really fucked up behavior. Don't do that, and don't allow that at your table. That is really, really messed up behavior. That's like you're trying to role-play suicide in the game without the consent of everybody at the table. That's not okay. Here, give me your character sheet. Tear it up. Here's another character sheet. Make up a new character or get the fuck out. Never place a 200k on the neck. Good advice, Summer Yeti. Thank you. Yeah, enemies are made of paper. Players are made of steel. They're both 100 kg. Okay. One of my greatest GMing moments was swapping a PC with an Oni. The player loved it. She sabotaged the players and was fantastically evil over the 3 sessions before the reveal. It's funny you should mention that. I was just playing an Oni in Esper's game. We were testing out his next Kickstarter where you play as monster characters. I'm playing an Oni ogre named Bogodan, and he's awesome. I love that character. It's like, he's got a friend with him called Vegemite who's being played by Fred. And it's like everything nasty that happens to Fred character, Bogodan is just amused. It's like he's all about the Schadenfreude. Let it serve the game. Yeah, particularly like role-playing games about your friendships. If you have problems with your friends, then role-playing games aren't going to save it. Like no amount of rules lawyering or how do I deal with this problem player? It's like, That's a friendship issue. It's like, how do I deal with my breakdown of my friendship with this person? It's like, well, do you really want to be friends with this person, or are you just putting up with a person who's antisocial asshole just because you need somebody at your games table? Man, you don't need a game that desperately. Oh, you did so after watching AJ's Oni video. Nice. I don't think I personally see nothing wrong with playing an evil campaign where all the players are evil, all the characters are evil. But if you're playing a character who's evil and all the rest of the players are trying to play characters who are good, yeah, that can be problematic. A lawful evil character can work though, but a chaotic evil character, nah, not really. You won't be playing that character right. They just don't gel that way. Like there needs to be a certain point where the DM steps in and says, okay, there's no reason why your character would tolerate that behavior from that character. So your character now kills that character, or the rest of the gaming group murder your character in his sleep at night because you're actually an enemy. And they are designed as heroes to kill creatures that do things like what you just did. Like, your character just killed that townsfolk for no reason. There is no logical reason why these characters, with their alignments and their builds, would adventure with your character. So you just did something in game which is counter to you being a part of that group. So roll up a new character and don't do that again. That is perfectly reasonable behavior from a dungeon master. You are an arbiter. You determine the reality of the situation. You can stop the game and say, no, that's not okay behavior. Stop doing that. Don't do that again. And they'll be like, but my character agency. It's like, no. This is you've actually violated the social compact here. We're not here for that shit. Don't do that. That's not fun. That's only fun for you. You're being nasty and antisocial. Don't do that. It's not edgy. It's not cool. It's not fun. That's just masking your bullying behavior, your bullying tendencies. And you don't want to do that. That's not how you win friends and influence people. But if everybody wants to play an evil campaign, you can do that sort of stuff in proxy to non-player characters. You don't do that to each other. Yeah, don't be an edgelord. Nobody likes it. Yeah, mental health is important. Very much so. Like, role-playing games should never be a proxy for doing nasty things that you wish that you could do in real life, really. There's a social agreement to play games like that. They're very cathartic. But present monsters that you can go apeshit on and kill with great gusto, for sure. Not everything has to be a negotiable situation. Not every monster has to have like a life story and goals and aspirations. Sometimes it just can be a slavering beast that wants to eat your marrow of your bones. Like manticores want to eat you because they need metal from the armor, but they have a biological need to eat metal. Or amvoraxes need to eat gold to survive. Zorns are usually trapped in the prime material plane and exploited for their need to eat gemstones and stuff. So they are angry and they just want to get home. Elementals are horrified at being stuck in one physical form. That's not normal for them. They want to go home. They don't want to be there. Summoned creatures want to kill everybody that pulled them away from their life and the drama that they're in, particularly any sort of creature from the infernal realms. They don't want to get pulled into the prime material realm. It weakens them by the second. Like when they get home, they're going to get their ass kicked. That's the reason why, like, the Lady of Pain and the Queen of Chaos and Pale Knight have no name, because they got rid of it because of summoning magic. You can't summon the Lady of Pain or the Queen of Chaos or Pale Knight because they no longer have an identity to summon. If someone in your playgroup is metagaming and the DM is playing into it, is there a way to let them know they are ruining the immersion? Yeah, tell them. Tell them. Say, hey, I think you're metagaming. I think you're playing into it. I'm not having a good time. Get a pair of balls. Or just get up and walk away and say, you know what you're doing, man. I'm not having fun. This is bullshit. Bullshit. It's like, what are you doing? Tell them. Outright tell them. Depends on the metagaming. Yeah, true. Could be something kind of minor. But like, man, a lot of it is just like, just stand up for yourself. Just, hey, man, maybe somebody's never told you this before, but that's really dick stuff to do. Like that's really unenjoyable. I'm not having a good time. Tell them right to their face. None of this passive-aggressive bullshit. Thanks, Peter. Anyway, that's pretty much it for me. I only do this for an hour or so at a time. And yeah, my plan of doing all this wonderful stuff, drawing on my map, I'll have to save it till next time. Next time we'll do a proper like campaign planning, and I'll get a lot of interaction from you, and we're going to do a few live streams which are using my battle mats, shameless plug, as we lead into the Kickstarter. And we will do some campaign planning, world building, and some actual practical stuff. How to RPG live at 8. I like it. How to RPG was here, by the way. So thanks for stopping by, Fred, and thanks to Rogue Scholar and Summer Yeti and Stanch Skate and Verity and Action Annie and all the regulars and all the new people who have stopped by. You love the Coalition video? I've got more. Okay, I'll give you the heads up. So my current policy with the Coalition series, well, basically the Palladium Books series, is I am doing the videos in the exact order that people have requested content. That's how it works. So we've done the Coalition States. The next one up is Psionics. The next one after that is Mutants, Animals, and the Bio-E system. So from Hero, Mutants and Master, not Mutants and Master, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Roadhogs, After the Bomb, and Heroes Unlimited has got the mutant stuff in there. Transdimensional TMNT has got like the mutant humans and stuff. Really cool. That's Eric Wujcik's Bio-E system. Eric Wujcik is an ENI Lifetime Award winner. He is one of only 3. The other 2 are Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax. So when I talk about his role-playing design as being next-level genius, I'm not kidding. Cyber Knights is the next one after that. Not my favorite topic, but I'm going to do it justice. Also, the Coalition States was not my favorite topic either, but I think you agree I did that justice as well. I actually learned a lot about the Coalition States in that video. The Federation of Magic, DBs, Dog Boys, and Psy Stalkers. Looking forward to that one. Palladium Fantasy and the Garden of the Gods. So we're going to go back into Palladium Fantasy, which is different from Rifts because it's the STC system. The Garden of the Gods is a new product that's just come out from Palladium Books. Palladium Books is not from the past. They've been producing RPGs since the 1980s, but they're still an active company, and they're also inviting in other game systems to adapt their world settings now to other game systems. So we've got Savage Worlds, Rifts, for instance, and they're quite open to doing a Cypher Systems Rifts or something else. Kids on Bikes, Rifts version. Free Quebec after that. The new Quebec, I have to keep pronouncing Quebec, not Quebec, AJ. You're going to sound like such a foreigner when you get there. The New German Republic after that. So that'll also be Triax and the New German Republic. Mystic Russia. I haven't got much experience with that one, so I'm looking forward to learning about that. Vampire Kingdoms, my favorite. Heroes Unlimited, my absolute favorite subject. And the Mechanoid Invasion after that is a recent addition. I've also got some viewer requests for Dresden Files, and I've done the Crooked Staff promo as well. So that's all coming up pretty much in succession. No questions. As well as my usual AJ's Guide to Extraterrestrials. And the next one coming up is going to be a mind bender. It's going to be the most alien concept for a creature that you've ever heard of. It's also going to make you question the laws of physics themselves. Ooh. And I'll leave you with that, everybody. Have fun. Happy gaming.